This is my Boxster GTS, and the doors, well, the doors are a bit they're a bit wobbly, aren't they? And that's because the door check strap or the door stay is worn out. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the door stay to make your doors work like new. Hello everyone, welcome to Project 981, welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're talking about door check straps or door stays. Now the door, whether it's in the Boxster, the Cayman or the 911, it's basically the same. It's hung from two hinges, needless to say, but the hinges have no bearing on how far the door opens, nor do they provide those little indents, the stops, the halfway stops as we open and close the door. Now you can possibly even hear my doors creaking when I do that, and you'll see that if I let it go, it's wobbling. It's wobbling because the strap or the indents have basically worn out. I think it's quite a common problem on the 981, 718 and the 991 cars. They all share a common part. This is it, this is the new one, and it fits in there, but to get to it we have to get into the door itself, which means we have to take the door card off and then remove the larger of the two speakers. So this video is me replacing that, and in doing that I'm going to show you briefly how to take the door card off. There is a separate video on that in which I go into a bit more detail, but basically door card off, speaker out, take the old one out, put the new one in, tighten it all up, and we get back to what should be a nice new smooth door which doesn't wobble or creak. Let's make a start. So the clever thing about Porsche's door card design is that it's not dependent on a whole load of fiddly screws and fastenings to support the panel on the door. The weight of this is actually held in place by a series of cups and hooks that are moulded into the back of this. The screws that we need to take out, they simply do the job of securing the whole thing in place once those hooks and cups are doing their job. Now the screws sit behind a couple of bits of trim. That's the first thing we need to remove, so let's have a look at those. So there's 4 screws and there's 4 bits of trim you need to remove to get to the screws. Well, actually you don't need to remove 4, you need to remove 3, but there's a 4th we have to take out. The first piece is this end blanking plate here. The second piece is a very small fillet sitting inside the door there. The third piece is this larger moulding, the bit that says airbag here, and there's 2 screws, one there, one there. And the last piece, which doesn't have a screw behind it but we have to take off, is this little triangle fillet which just does the job of filling in the gap of the wing mirror, behind the wing mirror. So this is the door check strap removal video and not my door card removal video. If you want to see how I get the door card off, please do check it out. The link is in the description. Suffice to say, it's pretty straightforward. Let's now have a look at what the next step is to get the door check straps replaced. So the door card, the door panel is now off, and we can see, well, what we can actually see is that the door check strap, the door stay, is still inaccessible because it's still behind that speaker. So the next job is to take the speaker out. Now in practice, the bolts are actually accessible. You can actually unbolt it. Excuse the appalling contrast of exposure. But to remove it once you've unbolted it requires it to come out into the door, hence why we need to go behind the speaker. So I shall start by removing the speaker. So, speaker removal. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier was how wonderfully modular all of this is, which clearly helps in both the construction of the parts and the assembly in the factory, but it also makes life really easy for us when we want to start taking things apart. This literally held on by, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on a T20, Torx T20 here. The first thing to do is just unclip the electrics. Really couldn't be any easier, it just comes out. And then just work our way through these. I'm going to leave the last one at the top until last. Popping those in my magnetic tray. Now there's a rubber gasket behind this, so it shouldn't immediately just fall off. No, you can see it staying there. At this point you might need to get your fingers in, maybe even a bit of trim removal tool, but yeah, I'm going to need to go and get my trim removal tool. Bear with me. Trim removal tool, as I say, there's a little rubber gasket just holding this in. It's not glue, it's just the resistance from 10 years, 9 years. So I'm just going to gently put that in, tiny little push. There it is. You can hear it just releasing. We've already unclipped it, and it is literally as simple as that, the way it comes. And there is just a nice double sealed gasket and a couple of locating pins, but in all honesty you don't have to worry about those. There it is, that's come off. And now we have access in here to extract the door check strap once it's unbolted, so that is the next job. So let's have a quick look at what we've got. The speaker's now out. As I said, next thing to do is to unbolt and extract the door check strap. And you can see from my angle, I've shot the wide angle here, you can see what we can then see inside. There it is, just down in there. This is the guide for the glass for the window, but that is the back of it, and that's how we need to get it out. Just by way of orientation, that's where we are. And that's obviously down at the exposed end. Okay, time to unbolt things. Now, it's tempting to start by unbolting that, but the reality is that it's probably easy to actually unbolt the two nuts in there first. Loosen those off, because once you remove this piece, then the door is no longer, funnily enough, checked or under control, and it'll just swing on the hinge. So just be aware that once you undo that, it'll all slap around. So in my experience, it's better to loosen off in here first, take that out, and then you can take this straight off without this then flapping around and damaging the paintwork. Right, I'm going to make a start at the back here. I'm using a 10mm on a little ratchet. Going to just feel for the nut head. I should just make sure this is the right way. There we are. It goes not too stiff. That's pretty much there. Same at the bottom, there's two. There we go. And that's basically done. Now at this point it is practical and safe to remove the captured, I think that's the nut with a washer. There'll be a special term for that, but one of those, and the top one. Actually, that's still a bit stiff. Let's just do that. Now once that's off, just be mindful exactly that of it coming away. So we've still got the mechanism in the door, but you can see that it's now loose. So I'm going to swap to a different attachment to take this out. I'm using my special foot technique. Now that's a little bit stiffer, but that's, once that's cracked off, that's come off really easily. Just using my toe to keep the door in a mid position. And in all honesty, that's pretty easy to get out. Right, now don't want to damage too much paintwork here, so taking the bolt out, and then you can see finally that threads through the hole in the door, and out comes the original door check strap. And if you're in any doubt that this is common to 981, 982, 991, the part number is 991, funnily enough. There we go, 991.537.151.00. They're not handed, they work on both sides. So that is the old one, and we can see all the wear and tear on the race there, and that's why it was slapping around. So the door is now loose, so I'm going to just gently let that come towards me and edit out the next bit. But the jobs to do before putting the new one in is just to tidy up the dirt here where it's been on the frame. I'll probably quickly polish those marks out. There's not a lot to do on this side. I might just wipe a bit of cloth down here, but in all honesty it's probably fine. And then we just put the new one in. Now you probably are happy to take my word for it, but we have now taken the door stop, the door check strap out, and you can see that the door is now just literally sliding around on its hinges. No creaking, no sort of détente. So it does quite a lot of work, doesn't it? I mean, the hinges are lovely and smooth, but yeah, that is the reason we have a door check strap. Now, just doubling down on that part number thing, you can just about see that's a 991 part 5371510, and you can also see the wear on the race, and that's what's giving the slop. Now, it does say left here, but also if you turn it over, funnily enough, it says right, so it's basically the left and right is the way you install it, not a unique part number. So that 00 is notable because I said at the top of the video that I think this is a well-known fault, and funnily enough, if we look at the replacement, it's 01, so it's definitely a different part. Let's get that out of the bag. Here it is. I mean, it's basically the same. Obviously it's new, but we can see straight away that it has the updated part number, and we can see that the race surface is brand new, and these little stops here is where the indents come from effectively, and obviously it's on both sides. You can see that in profile. Right, so that's good. 2 locator pins, or sorry, single locator pin, and otherwise it's all straightforward, so that just goes straight back in. Okay, so time to put this back in. Now I've had a bit of a clean up in here, polished off some of the marks, put a bit of wax on it to protect it, a bit of a wipe down in here where the door card covers it, and it's harder to get to. Yes, it's voiceover man again, this time with an apology for the appalling focusing, framing, white balance, exposure issues in this next couple of clips. A lesson learnt. Moving on. So it's now time to put the new stay in. Let's check it's the correct one. Yes, it is 01. It's quite hard to get this the wrong way round because the bracket that goes onto the door doesn't really work the wrong way round because it's proud, so you can't go too far wrong with that. Now, the other thing to say at this point is I'm reluctant to have to do this job again because it's come loose. I'm going to put a little bit of, carefully, thread lock. I'm going to feed this through. It's a little bit inconvenient, isn't it? There we go, get my foot up there. Does that work? I'm going to feed this through the correct way round, which is that. Find the gap. There it is. Feed that through. Now there's a locating pin on the back, on the body of the check, so we can sort of feed the studs through. Just wobbling here. Feels like, there we go, so that's in there. Right, now this point, yep, that looks good. And I'm going to just start that by hand so I don't thread it. And I'm going to nip that up. It's just so it's roughly in place. Now this stay is the stay is still not working because it's loose in the body. So taking back the nuts, we can now find the ends of the studs. They go on nicely to start with. 2 of those, and then swapping out my back to the 10mm, and yeah, I'm going to need the ratchet on that, so just supporting the door, probably in the middle of the camera angle. Swap that over. Yeah, that's good. Right, so back we go. Right, so the stay is kind of working now. I'm now going to go back to the body, and I'm going to just do that up to a decent a level of torque that I'm going to judge by use of my wrist. So that's actually not far off. It wasn't particularly tight when it came out, so I'm just going to just a couple of turns there, bed it in. That's fine, doesn't need to be too tight. Manage that, and then we can go back to the bolts on the stair itself, and we can now finish those off. Again, we're not trying to sort of set world records for torque here. We just want to make sure it's firmly in place. The thread lock will do its work. Almost there. That's just coming to the point of purchase. Tiny bit more there. Tiny bit more there. And that, ladies and gents, boys and girls, is basically the job done. And if I was to shuffle my derriere, we can now see that we have a door which, in the absence of a handle, stops and opens really nicely and without any squeaking from the warm part. So that is good news. I'm going to do one more thing, which is put a tiny daub of a little bit of silicone grease on the détente on the stay here, and then we can start to rebuild the rest of the door. Right, let's pop the speaker back in. I have got the speaker in my hands, you'll be able to see. If you're concerned about which way around it goes, the clue is this plug for the electric, so that gives us a rough position, and I'm therefore going to put one at the top to anchor it. Once you've finished the stay, you don't really need to be in here anymore, so there's no harm in just cracking on and putting it all back on. Let's just pop that up into there and then locate that just with a couple of turns. We should be able to then push the rest of the speaker in. There is a little locator pin somewhere. There it is. In that goes. That's all nice flush. So we can carry on with the remainder of the screws. Now again, you're not trying to set world records for tightness here, so that's all. I'm just going to give those a sort of an eighth of a turn, just to bed that gasket back onto the frame. Go that one, that one, that one, and the last one at the top. I know you're all thinking you haven't plugged it back in yet, so with that last one in and tightened, I shall plug it back in and we are good. That's in, no screws left in the tin, strap on, tightened up. I think we're now ready to put the door card back on. Okay, so final check before I put the trim in. We have got, that's tightened up, those are tightened up, those are tightened up, that's tightened up. This is all nicely in. I've added the puddle light, see separate video. That's wired up, done the connector. The connector's back in and the clip is down, so we are good to go. So let's start with the end piece. I gave it a quick wipe, but there's not much to them really. Two little gaps to aim for. Nope. There we go. Don't beat around the bush, that goes in nicely. And then the one for the door. Now I need to hook the end on for this. So hook that in. That's it, the end is hooked in, and then that should just push top and bottom. That couldn't be easier, could it? That's great. Let's do the main piece next. And so through the magic of the edit, the door check strap on the passenger side has also been replaced. And I don't know if we can even zoom in on that. Probably not. Anyway, that's gone in just as smoothly as the driver's side. I also gave this a little tidy up too, so that's all lovely and sorted. And then the door card with its speaker in place, replaced and back on, as you can see. So we've got two doors with two brand new OEM door check straps in situ, and they are operating wonderfully, nice and quiet, with a good solid, yeah, that's much harder to pull away now, and they just sit there very happily. So I'm really chuffed with that. So there we have it, two door check straps, two door stays replaced by removing the door cards, popping the speakers out, unbolting, cleaning, putting back in, tightening, door cards back on. And it is literally the same process on both sides. It is the same part. It is not handed. It goes on either way, doesn't matter. And if you've got squeaky or wobbly doors, that's probably because the check straps are worn, and this is how you change them. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and it's given you some ideas about how you can freshen up your own car. Again, this is entirely the same whether it's a Cayman, Boxster or 911, 981, 982, which is to say 718, or the 991 generation cars, all the same parts, complete the same process. I have done a separate video, as I mentioned, about taking the door cards off. Do have a look at that as well. And I've been talking about the puddle lights as well at times in this video. And those are now wired in and ready to go, and I'll be following that up with a video where I go and code it using the PWIS system. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this, do give me a like and a thumbs up. If you want to see some of that stuff coming up, please subscribe to the channel, which leaves me simply to say thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.